And in the beginning of all, a young student named Yuryu Kamehachi reflects briefly on the concept of marital union, and describes this phenomenon as one of the connections that bring humans together. And for him, every human being has a connection of destiny, whether with his work colleagues, friends or family, and in his case Yuryu Kamehachi says that this same logic also applies to the new life he will begin now, and as soon as he enters the sanctuary. With a study book, two girls come and he starts to make fun of him, saying that the boy must have gone to study at a sanctuary to ask for help from the deity, but upon hearing this comment, rude Yuryu disregards and says he does not believe in any deity, but soon after saying this he note that it is not at all appropriate to go to a shrine when you do not believe in anything, but he follows the path and enters the house, introducing himself as a new resident who stayed. Moved to the location, however, he receives silence as an answer, and then Yuryu deduces that the priest who was supposed to receive him must be very old and therefore cannot hear him very well. So he starts walking around the house looking for the priest, but suddenly he stops in front of a door and starts hearing voices of young girls inside, and he is relieved because he almost opened the door and was faced with a cliché, but the girls open the door before even if they change and then close to get dressed, but they soon have him back to complain about his attitude, calling Yuryu a pervert. Then one of the girls notices him bleeding from the nose because he got slightly excited in villages like that, and after resolving all the misunderstanding, Yuryu sits with the three priestesses at the table and explains that he will begin living in the sanctuary with them, but Yuna continues to get on his case for what happened before, so Yuryu asks her to forget about this matter. After all, they will have a lot of problems if the girls keep remembering it. This happened, and hearing him treat that subject so highly, and Yuna claims that seeing the body, the nakedness of a sacred priestess is not something so banal, but Yuryu reminds her again that that was just an accident. Then he asks to speak to the high priest, but then Yuryu will return to the shrine the next day, and upon discovering that he is still in the second year in high school, Yai says she is older than him, so the girl offers to help him with whatever is necessary, since she is the senpai there, but Asari says it is already clear that even being older, Yai remains the most childish of the three, and she, Asari says, will be the youngest girl from there, being only 14 years old, so she asks him to treat her like her little sister, and hear that the other two priestesses have already accepted the idea of having Yuryu as a member of the family, and on her part, and he still hasn't been accepted. After all, she was always against the idea of leaving a man live in the sanctuary with them. Nils then asks her not to be so evil, but Yuryu says that prefers her to behave this way, especially since he doesn't intend to pay attention to them while was living there, and would hear this, and Yuna leaves the place and says that she will keep an eye on him for now, and after that, Yai takes him to the room where he will stay, but when looking for his mattress in the wardrobe, the girl ends up causing an accident and falls with the shock absorbers on top of her face. Yuryu and Nils and Yuna run into the room to see what's going on, and come across that totally suggestive scene, and not at all cliché in sand anime, and after all this confusion, he goes back to studying, when suddenly, interrupted by Asari, who goes to him with the intention of get to know him better, but Yuryu says he is very busy, and orders her to leave the room, and when she sees him denying it, her presence there, Asari begins to question his sexuality, and so she begins to snoop around in his things to see if Yuryu has any adult magazines, as this is the only way she can confirm whether she really is, and in that he will have her to stop her from messing with his things, but ends up tripping over a pair of pants and falls on top of her, and then Yuna goes to the room again to see what's going on, and catches Yuryu again attacking one of the priestesses, and after a while studying, Yuryu feels that he is not performing as well as he should, so he decides to wash his face to wake up, but on the way he finds Yuna sleeping on the floor and sneezing, so Yuryu tries cover her to protect her from the cold, but Yuna wakes up just in time, and as always interprets in the worst possible way, and after calming things down, he asks what Yuna was doing awake so late. The other sisters notice some folded paper on the table, and deduce that Yuna has been working on this until late at night, and as for him, Yuryu doesn't understand what are those folds, and deduce that they are just some types of amulets made for visitors of the sanctuary, but he is asked why she does that even though she knows she won't gain any money from it, so Yuna explains that it is already natural for her to do those things. After all, the other sisters are responsible for intertwining the divinity and the people who pray for them, and how much to the red ribbons they wear. Yuna says that these items were left by their mother who has already passed away, and although they can no longer see her physically, the feeling of the three daughters with her mother remains connected to the bonds they received from her. I know this is to make the anime more colorful and each one has a personality, but why does each daughter have a hair color different? And I answer everything he asked. Yuna decides to do the same and asks what Yuryu was up so late, to which he replies that he was just studying, as always. After all, his wish is to enter Kyoto Medical University, and hearing this, Yuna is surprised, because she was right, that he was just an unfriendly pervert, in which the girls claim that this is the ideal place to those who wish to succeed in the tests, after all the deities of that sanctuary usually help with this kind of desire. In addition, Yuna explains that they are in a time of year when a miracle, the so-called shower of stars that grant wishes, and hearing this cheesy name, and Yuryu is already starting to disdain what comes next, but Yuna continues telling the story, and according to an ancient legend, when the stars fall on a spring night, a wish can be granted, performed if the person in question bathes in the rain of stardust. So Yuna believes that any wish can be fulfilled as long as the individual prays to the deities every day. I finish listening to everything she had to say. Yuryu disdains the story she just finished to introduce him, and explains that at this time of year, the meteor showers that occur are small temperature, therefore, they disappear into the atmosphere before even reaching the earth. But even so, these rains actually reach the earth. Yuryu claims that this talk of bathing in rains of stars would only make the person die with the impact of the meteor. And to finish sealing, the Yuryu says that believing in something totally denialist and anti-scientific is something for those who has the brain in Disney, which upon hearing, Yuna gets irritated and starts to demonstrate all its tolerance, the plurality of ideas threatening to muzzle the Yuryu. And the next day, Yuna continues with her opinion, saying that nothing that is preached in the sanctuary works, since the prayers to the amulets they have been making there. So he doesn't see himself becoming a priest. Not at all, but seeing Yuna having difficulty talking to a foreign child, he will have her to help her and talk to the child in English, explaining how it works. Of that talisman she just received, having done that, he suggests that she practice her English more, since she will end up having contact with many foreigners in the sanctuary. And in the middle of the conversation, Yuna tries to grab the smile out of nowhere and steals the ribbon from Yuna's head, in which the sisters try calm her down, saying that the deities are on her side. Then Yuryu goes to the girls and suggests, let them stand still waiting for an answer from beyond. After all, Yuna lost something very important for her. Having said that, he goes to the girl and states that only she is capable of achieving her own I wish. However, Yuna defends her belief and ensures that the deities never abandon those who pray for their help. And with that said, Yuna states that he definitely doesn't fit in with his own desire. And after this discussion, Yuryu goes to his room to study more, until suddenly, Ya and Asari return to his room and notice that he is no longer there. So Asari returns, looking for some adult magazine in his things, and tells Ya, and she notices a picture frame at the boys' table, where Yuryu is with his mother who passed away a while ago, leaving him alone in the world. There are ideas that he has prayed a lot to the deities at this time, but his calls were never heard. Then Asari remembers what he had said about him being responsible for fulfilling their own desires. After all, no one else will do that for them. Although Yuna and Yuryu dream differently at first sight, Asari believes that everything will be right between them in the end, as the two are more alike than they realize. While they talk about the two, Yuna stays outside listening to the whole conversation, and Yuryu tries to look for Yuna's bow outside the shrine, but he notes that it will be more effective to wait until dawn to continue the search. But as soon as he thought about it, he lightly slapped his face, and says he will not be a coward right now. He remembers this from the prayers, and although he does not believe it much in these things, Yuryu decides to pray to the deities, asking that Yuna be able to find the bow that she considers as her true treasure. And in that, Yuna runs to the place and smiled. Seeing him praying for her, Yuna then stands next to him and starts praying too. So Yuryu takes the opportune moment to apologize for the cruel things he said to her that day earlier, and told her, and Yuna apologizes for being harsh with him too, and says that he can now consider himself welcome to live in the sanctuary, since he has at least demonstrated of respect for the deities. And suddenly, the other sisters find them and are relieved in seeing them. Well, they go home, but on the way, the main of little stars that Yuryu so much doubted it was possible, it starts happening right in front of you. But when you notice a cherry blossom falling, he explains that it is just a weak meteor shower accompanied by flowers of cherry tree. And when they see him constantly trying to use logic to explain everything, the sisters begin calling him a prude and a woman repellent, and claiming that the simple fact that he is living under the same roof of three beautiful sisters can already be considered a miracle. And after a while, the priest finally appears and apologizes for being so late, and these girls explain that they ended up having some problems in their absence, but they have already been resolved. Yuna's bond, and told the Lord, he says he will be counting on Yuryu's help from now on. In this case, he will have to marry one of the three sisters and inherit the sanctuary when the priest dies. But when they hear this, both Yuryu and the sisters are in shock, because apparently, none of them knew about this condition. And man, I'm already enjoying it. I really like this type of dynamic. He will definitely experience a lot of things, several cliches with these sisters, until in the end he will choose the first girl that appeared, the most boring one, right? Because it's going to be pink hair, I'm sure it's going to be Yuna, or something annoying. But let's continue, let's watch each episode of this, comment below if you want the continuation, and I'll definitely see you in the next video, UI.